You ever have one of those thoughts? Something so strange or out there that you kind of wonder, am I the only one who thinks this? Well, today, we're going to dive into those exact opinions, the ones that go against the grain, and see what they can tell us about ourselves. So let's just jump right in with a question you've probably seen all over the internet. It seems completely bonkers, right? But stick with me, because as we're about to find out, there's a surprisingly logical and very human fear hiding inside this question. We'll unpack that in just a bit, I promise.
But first, where are we even finding these opinions? Well, our case studies all come from this one really specific, kind of fascinating corner of the internet that's built for people who think differently.
It's a subreddit called The 10th Dentist. And yeah, it's named after exactly what you're thinking of. That classic toothpaste commercial, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend it. Well, this community is for that one dentist, the one who's like, nah, I disagree. It's a home for true contrarians.
Now here's the twist, the thing that makes this whole system so brilliant. You don't upvote things you agree with. Nope, you're supposed to upvote the opinions you find genuinely unpopular. So the more you disagree with it, the higher it goes. This means the posts that rise to the top are the ones most people find totally bizarre, which gives us some absolutely fantastic case studies to dig into. So for our first example, we're going to challenge something we all think is like a universal good, right? A perfect, uninterrupted night of sleep. Well, what if someone told you that's not the best part?
Okay, so get this. The argument here is that the best part of sleeping is that moment you realize you get to sleep more. And to manufacture that feeling on demand, this user sets an alarm for 2:59 a.m. every single weekday, just for the pure pleasure of waking up, realizing it's the middle of the night, and going right back to sleep. Wild, right? And man, this opinion really splits people down the middle. You've got one camp, the believers, who are like, yes, I totally get it. You're hacking your brain for a little dopamine spike. It's that pure relief. But then you've got the skeptics who call it a privileged sleeper take. I mean, not everyone can just fall back asleep that easily. Plus, are you really going to interrupt your REM cycle? That sounds like a pretty big gamble. Okay, so moving on from just a personal quirk, our next unpopular opinion is actually a pretty sharp critique of a major cultural norm, dog ownership. So this poster comes out swinging with a pretty provocative claim that most people who call themselves dog people are basically lying to themselves. They argue that people are drawn to this picture-perfect idea of having a dog, but they're completely unprepared for the huge responsibility it actually is.
So, to be clear, the real target here isn't dogs. It's not anti-dog at all. It's anti-irresponsible owner. The core issue, they say, is a culture that treats dogs like fluffy accessories instead of living creatures that need a ton of work and consistent training. The point is, a lot of people want the cute pet, but not the hard work of dealing with barking, jumping, or, choosing a breed that actually fits their lifestyle.
All right, let's circle all the way back to the beginning. Back to that worm question. Is there any real meaning behind it, or is it just a weird internet thing? Well, according to one person, oh yeah, it's absolutely got a purpose. The argument is that the worm question isn't random at all. It's a very specific kind of test. It's actually designed to bypass a partner's automatic, rehearsed answers about love and commitment.
So, here's the breakdown of how it supposedly works. The real fear isn't literally about becoming a worm, it's, will you still love me when I'm old, or sick, or just not this person anymore? The problem is, if you ask that directly, you're just going to get a polite, maybe dishonest, of course. So, the strategy is to use a totally bizarre hypothetical, the worm, to force an honest, unrehearsed reaction. And the goal? To hopefully get a glimpse of how they truly feel about unconditional love.
But here's the fatal flaw in this whole plan. Some people are just literal thinkers. If you actually genuinely turn into a worm, the relationship is going to face some pretty serious practical problems. You can't talk. You can't hug. So for a literal person, the honest answer is no. And just like that, they failed a test they never even knew they were taking. So after all that, sleep, dogs, and worms, what's the big takeaway here? It turns out these contrarian viewpoints aren't just noise. They're like little windows. They give us a peek into our hidden anxieties, our unspoken critiques of culture, and the deeply personal ways we all experience the world. They force us to look at things we take for granted from a completely different angle. And you can see how they tend to fall into these different buckets. You have the personal quirks, like the 2:59 alarm, which show us that even a universal experience like sleep isn't really universal at all. You have the social critiques, which question these big norms we rarely think about. And then you have these relationship anxieties, which reveal the complex, sometimes clumsy ways we try to communicate our deepest fears.
So, the next time you have an opinion that really goes against the grain, something you'd only post on a forum for the 10th dentist, maybe don't just dismiss it. Instead, ask yourself, what hidden truth, what deeper question are you really trying to get at?